Well, this is not exactly an executive order. It's an executive memorandum, which my legal friends have pointed out is slightly different. It has different ramifications, especially when it comes to budget in particular. But this memorandum has now been signed, directing the DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, and the Pentagon to prepare this 30,000 bed facility. And now, Trump said we have 30,000 beds to detain the worst criminal illegal aliens threatening the American people. He then continues, we don't want them coming back, so we're going to send them to Guantanamo. Now, we also got a gaggle with the new Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, and we asked her some questions along with Tom Homan, the man who was named the border czar. They so far have not been told what the cost of this new facility is going to be. They said that the costs are still going to be appropriated and they need to figure out how much exactly really it's going to cost. But Secretary Noem said that the people there are going to be, quote, the worst of the worst. Then it came out also in that gaggle that the custody being held, people being held in custody there are going to come under the purview of ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, which has been rounding people up in Chicago and the like over the course of the last couple of days. Now, we're getting some reaction as well from Cuba, the island, of course, where Guantanamo Bay is actually located on. The Cuban government calling this an act of brutality to our colleagues at the AFP news agency.
And Fraser, Democrats have tried for years to get Guantanamo closed down. There is little chance of that happening now, we would presume.
Yeah, well, this is known as a prison camp housing terrorists, but actually it's not just that. It's actually been used for decades to house migrants who were intercepted at sea trying to make it to the United States. Now, what happens in that process is these migrants are screened on the boat, just as they would be at the southern border, for example, and then they're effectively given a choice whether to return where they came from or to be detained at Gitmo whilst they're waiting for a third nation to take them in effectively. So they then kind of fall into this legal grey area, which is not really under the purview of normal, typical US custom laws. Now, as of February, there were just 4 people being housed there, but the conditions have been questioned by government watchdogs. They've been reports of overflowing toilets and rats in the corridors, but the numbers that we are told there, that the four migrants being housed there, are not counting the untold numbers that are quickly processed and then deported. Those 4 are more long-term residents, as it were. They are being housed separately from the terrorists that we know who took part in the September 11 terrorist attacks, but they are given slightly a few more liberties, as it were. They do have curfews, but they're allowed to get a job on the island as well, another part of the camp, not close to the detention facility, but that now is likely to change. Now that this is ramping up to 30,000 people, those few freedoms that those people enjoyed are likely not to be given to the new arrivals, especially as they're being described as the worst of the worst by Secretary Noem.